The UN chief warns the world is facing a moment of truth with just 5 years to avoid the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. Now, the godfathers of climate chaos, that's the scathing description given to coal, oil and gas corporations by the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. In a speech to a UN climate conference, he said they had distorted the truth and deceived the public for decades. His remarks came as scientists warned the world's climate is warming at the fastest rate ever recorded. Here's our climate editor, Justin Rolat.
Temperatures in the Indian capital, Delhi, hit just shy of 50 degrees Celsius in recent days, the highest ever recorded. Meanwhile, parts of Brazil are still recovering from extensive floods caused by a deluge made twice as likely by climate change, say scientists. It is evidence, said the head of the UN today, that the world is playing Russian roulette with the climate.
Climate change is the mother of all stealth taxes paid by everyday people and vulnerable countries and communities. Meanwhile, the godfathers of climate chaos, the fossil fuel industry, rake in record profits and feast off trillions in taxpayer-funded subsidies.
Let's take a look at average global monthly temperatures over the last 12 months. Each of the lines here is a year and shows how high temperatures were compared to before the Industrial Revolution, when the world started producing lots of greenhouse gases. This line shows the last 12 months. And look, every single month has set a new monthly temperature record, and often by a significant margin. That's the area we've shaded under the line. The main reason? Human-caused climate change. And don't expect these records to stand for long. A new report from the UN's weather body says there is an almost 9 in 10 chance there'll be an even hotter year within the next 5 years. The extreme heat in India means water is being rationed in some places. But we should not lose hope. The UN chief said today we have the technology to replace the fossil fuels driving climate change, but he says we must act quickly. Justin Rolat, BBC News.
Earlier, I spoke to Henna Hundal, a UN delegate to the climate change conference, for more on this.
I think Secretary General Guterres really hit the mark in his speech. It was a very impassioned speech. It was very fiery, but it absolutely matched the moment. I mean, we're at a point in time where you just talked about India. There have been 25,000 reported heat-related strokes just between March and May, and at least 50 confirmed deaths, likely more, according to government officials. We're seeing here in the U.S., where I'm coming at you from, the National Weather Service issuing a heat advisory, and we have the southwestern United States bracing for what will likely be a pretty devastating heat wave. So it's absolutely critical for the key players of the climate crisis, meaning big oil, which Secretary Guterres called out, to finally be held accountable. And I'm really glad to see that strong language be included in his speech. And I'm hopeful that at the upcoming UN Climate Change Conference this year, we'll keep that same type of energy in calling out the big emitters for their role in propagating this crisis.
Well, Guterres did make some suggestions as well. In drawing a comparison between advertising big oil with big tobacco, he called on all countries to ban fossil fuel adverts. Do you think actions like that would help?
I think it would help, because I think we can look at a very important parallel to big oil, which is big tobacco, and how big tobacco for many decades knew about the harms of their product and worked to obfuscate the public's understanding about how harmful cigarettes and cigars and tobacco really was. And we actually see big oil having engaged in similar behaviors. They've really gone on this public messaging campaign for decades, trying to either conceal their understanding of how much their fossil fuel emissions actually contribute to climate change. We now have evidence that they knew about this well before climate change entered into public consciousness. And as a result, you still have people today questioning if climate change is real. And that's directly due to the marketing efforts of big oil. So absolutely, we need to hold them accountable. And Secretary Guterres talked about, for example, banning fossil fuel advertisements, kind of taking a similar approach to what we saw with big tobacco when those advertisements were banned in parts of the world, but really sort of casting them in the light that they deserve to be in, which is something that hasn't been done for a long time. We've often talked about individual accountability, but I think we actually need to look at the source of the problem. And I hope that brings a lot of comfort to people as well, knowing that we're actually kind of getting to the root of the issue here, and targeting big oil is key for that.
And Hannah, evidence is overwhelming. The data is telling us that it's getting hotter and hotter. We've got another hottest month on record for May as well, just last month. How reversible is this, though, and what sort of target temperatures should we be looking at achieving?
It's only possible to stem this tide if we actually commit to the goal of limiting global average temperature increase to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And that's a goal that's been espoused for a very long time, but unfortunately we keep breaching that mark. And the concern is that if we breach it in kind of a long-term way, then we're really going to be in a world of hurt, and we'll continue to see people being impacted by these heat waves. So that's really kind of the key target. And I think what Secretary General Gutierrez is trying to do is highlight that and sort of do a clarion call as a last-ditch effort to action.